I think we can start. We will have a few people joining us, but we'll just be letting them in as they come. And I would like to say good morning and a good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to this third session of our Australia-Vietnam webinar series on the digital transformation of TVET. And I see people saying hello, which is lovely, and welcome to all. Before we begin, I would like to, like is the tradition in Australia, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and all First Nations people who may be here with us today. Once again, my name is Eva Filipiak, and I'm the Director International Engagement at TAFE Directors Australia. So as mentioned before, today's webinar series focus will be on the design of online and blended TVET courses. So I would like to again acknowledge the support of the Australian Department of Education, Skills and Employment, as well as the Directorate of Vocational Education and Training in Vietnam. Many thanks for making this webinar happen, and thanks in particular to the education team at the Australian Embassy in Vietnam. And also thank you to all really, the participants from TVET and all the colleges across Vietnam who have been with us for the last two sessions and are here again today. It's really great to have you with us again today and seeing how engaged you've been in the webinar series. We've really had great discussions in the previous sessions, and I look forward to some more constructive dialogue again today. It's my great pleasure to have with us today two Australian experts with great experience in today's webinar topic. And our first speaker is Simon Wilson, who is the Head of Product Development at Chisholm Online. And we also have Stuart Remington, who's a cookery lecturer at TAFE South Australia. Simon and Stuart will speak about the experience of designing online or blended TVET courses from a perspective of for Simon, the central team supporting the whole Institute on Online Design and Delivery, and from Stuart's perspective, from a trainer's perspective, in an area that is highly practical and hands-on, which is commercial cookery. So at the end of the presentations, like previously, we will have the Q&A session, and we encourage you to put any questions you may have to our speakers into the chat box. And finally, before we move on, just a quick reminder that simultaneous interpretation is available into Vietnamese and English, and you just have to click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Also, please note that if you wish to speak during the Q&A session, just raise your hand virtually, introduce yourself, and ensure that both your camera and your microphone are switched on before asking your question. Please kindly ensure that you are on mute if you are not speaking. And finally, please note that this webinar is being recorded and that the recording will be circulated to all participants at the end of this webinar. So let me now introduce our first speaker to you. So we have Simon Wilson again with us. So Simon, as I said, is Head of Product Development at Chisholm Online. His team is responsible for the design and development of online courses and the maintaining of the learning management system, Moodle, along with other online learning technologies. So a perfect fit for our session. Simon came to this role after teaching accounting at Chisholm Online for a year and having done some teaching at Chisholm in the classroom. And prior to Chisholm, Simon worked as a certified practicing accountant and developed his love for training as a volunteer trainer in surf lifesaving, which is very, very important in Australia. So well done, Simon, for your volunteer work as well. And Simon, academic qualification include a Master of Business Administration, graduate certificate in analytics, and Simon is currently completing a Master's of Education. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Simon for his presentation about the design of online and blended courses at Chisholm Institute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to be here. And hopefully I can provide some useful insights and information for you all. So let me share my screen. And it's up and running.
All good, very clear.
All good. And I just need the button that allows me to push forward. There we go. First of all, just a little bit about who we are. Chisholm Institute actually operates in Vietnam a little bit too, so we've got some work going on there. Into 2014, they decided that they're going to set up a wholly online division, which became Chisholm Online. So it became a separate organisation set up purely focused on online delivery and taking that online approach to the way courses are designed and set up. And so rather than maybe a progression from campus or on-campus delivery to being online, they said, no, let's set up take it completely online and look at it from that perspective and design courses that start as an online course. So we'll just talk a little about that. And what we came up with was a model of lots of content available on Moodle, our learning management system, and what we call a high touch model where there's still a lot of teacher interaction, but the teachers are available for the full week. They're not necessarily there on a particular, like a classroom time. They are available at any time through messaging or online through Zoom and things like that. So that's sort of how it is. But it basically became an online first delivery structure. So I said all our courses are in Moodle, our learning management system. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Obviously, that's one of the learning management systems that's available. Cloud-based, so available, and also available on things like mobile phones and tablets and the like. Teachers, as well as all that content being built into Moodle and available, the teachers are running webinars each week to help support some of that content and help the students along. And the recordings of all those sessions are available, so students that can't necessarily attend can watch it at a later point. The teachers interact on a lot of online forums. So within the learning management system, we have forums set up where there are, say, a question is posed about the topic or the learning content for that week. And then the students will start typing their responses and the teacher will contribute to that and the other students will contribute to that. So they are interacting online and sharing their information online at times that suit themselves, any time during that week where that sort of content is covered. Said there are activities in there to, like example quizzes to help support that along the way, so students can do it again at their own time and make it as easy as possible for them to confirm their learning as they go along. And we have that structured in 4 blocks a year, 10 weeks terms where we deliver the content over that period. Here are some of the courses. So these are obviously in the vocational space. There's a lot of different courses and you have, say, some of the courses which you could not do online, like learning how to build a house. You can't necessarily do online, but there's a lot of courses within our vocational sector that we can deliver online. So here are on the screen some examples of some of the courses that have been taken from delivery on campus and rebuilt for the online environment. So, well, first of all, I guess one of the first questions was to look at when this structure was set is how are we going to support our students? And as I said, it is an online first model. So therefore it's not where maybe when I was teaching the classroom, I would see the students while I was in the classroom and they'd say goodbye to them and see them next week. Because we have students that come in different times of the day, in different types of interactions, first of all, we had to set up a structure that allowed that. Now, obviously, the teaching team is in there. We have a teaching leader which facilitates on that course, but we also then had to invest heavily in what's called our student engagement team. They are available 7 days a week, and they are can be picked up on a phone call or through messaging, and can help the students 7 days a week with whatever they want, and they've got extended quite long hours too. So it's not just directly to just to the teacher, it's also to them. And the other area, which is in the middle, was my team, the product development team, was heavily invested in, because we have to not just take books or information that a teacher has in their head, we actually have to completely write a very detailed and in-depth online learning so that a student can progress it, you said, in their own time and their own space. And I'll talk about who our students are in a minute and why that's important. Now, and here we are. So this is, we not only look at an online presence, we also look at who the student is and try and understand them. This is a concept called personas, which is used in marketing and a few other things, to understand who's at the other end, who's your customer. In this case, we look at Sally. Sally is, and that, believe it or not, this is an accounting one, and that picture, if you can see that, represents the experience I had as a teacher dealing with people like Sally, where she's at home, she's got kids at home, she's trying to learn at the same time. So, and a lot of our students have these sort of, either whether they've got kids at home or they're working all day and they're studying at nighttime. So we have to consider those factors about who they are and what they've got. We also look at, for example, their technology skills, and down the bottom, that table talks about general computer skills, internet skills, Excel, which in for an accountant is important, and how good their skills are. And so we do this through researching, trying to understand who our students are, and then trying to understand what their aspirations are. And said typically the accounting bookkeeping teachers, which is where students where I work, they were mums at home and they wanted a new career when their children went off to school. We have, say, a different one where we have construction courses where they are tradesmen who are working full-time on site at this construction, and what they want is they want to go beyond being the tradesman, they want to be on a registered builder. So we look at the fact that they're not starting their study till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, weekends, and they're tired when they get home. So you have to factor in all those sorts of things about how you design the course and the amount of learning they're going to be able to do in a certain period, and also what their sort of aspiration is. So we try to understand who they are, and this is done through asking all our students and then come out with this concept of who a typical student is for us. Oops. Sorry, I've lost it. I'm just making sure it matches with my English version.
Yes, thanks for operating the Vietnamese slides, Simon. We understand that you're not fluent in Vietnamese just yet, but we appreciate that. That's helpful to the participants.
So here we've got our online, some of the concepts we build into our online design. First of all, online first, has to be online. If we just take what we've got, say a book, and put it on the internet, that doesn't work for our students because they'll lose interest. So it has to be built in with activities, a range of things. Device agnostics, phones, internet phones, computers, laptops, whatever you want. The social constructivism is something we've built in, which is again about that forums and getting students to talk, because it can be quite you're not going to a classroom, so you need to then build that atmosphere where students are exchanging that shared experience. So online forums where they can chat away is part of that concept in our design. Asynchronous learning, so they can learn at their own time. A student could come to us and could attend our course and never interact with the teacher if they didn't want to, and still get the learning outcomes. So we have to build it that way, that they could, if they wanted to, pursue it in their own time. Interactive technologies, quizzes and things like that. The more we've got those 360 walkthroughs where you walk through and a building, we've got that built into some of our courses. So you get that sort of more interactivity, as if you're on a, example, a nursing home. You actually go see what's in the nursing home, go through it on your computer. We focus on learner-centered design. Again, that's understanding who our learner is. Varying the type of delivery. So text is easy, writing is easy, but videos, podcasts, so they can listen to it. So some of our students who are studying but catch the train to work, they can listen to the podcast while they're on the way to work, on the way home, or whatever it is. So we built some of those things in there. And then we target our support, and we're working on that by looking at how much, with the online environment, you can actually, in their log into a learning management system, you can see how often they log in, when they log in, and we then build our teaching support and our student engagement support around that. Making sure they're ready for work, and that should be in any context, work ready assessments, so that they are doing as much similar as possible when they get to the workplace later on, and accessibility for, which is important for people that need extra assistance, like say deaf people and things like that. That's always important in the way we do. The model which we've used is a fairly standard model called ADDIE. There's, you may be aware of this, for generally designed for the development of training courses, analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. And again, when we're looking, there's probably some of the more specific areas and really different that you do for that online is really around the analysis and the design, and making sure you're aware of who that student is, the environment in which they are studying, because they're not studying in a classroom where the teacher can see them. They're studying at home, they're studying on the train, they're studying at their lunchtime at work. So we consider all those things before we start getting into the development of the course. We also consider the fact that one of the highest usage days of the week on our learning management system, well, in Moodle, is actually Sunday, when our teachers aren't working. So that's our student engagement team's there, but our teachers aren't. So that's important that we understand that that's when they're there, because they have other priorities, work, family, the like. We go through the development process. Once you've done the analysis and the design, the development is like essentially then becomes just writing a course. So it becomes fairly easy, as well as implementing. And the course we design is designed so that the teacher just has to like walk through the door, has to turn it on. All the content is there. Right? So sometimes we're in the classroom where the teacher may help fill the gaps between what is provided. That is all in the system. So if the teacher doesn't show up, for example, the student can still learn. So it's all built in there. And that means that the teachers just roll in it, but it also means it gives the student more information, but it also means that you get more consistent outcomes from the teachers as well, which is, and higher quality. And most importantly, we get feedback from our students. We send out regular surveys. We look at the logs or the data in Moodle to work out when they're going, how often they're going, how long it's taken to do an activity. And we learn from that about how they're progressing, and we make improvements based on all that information that we collect. This is just probably a quick example of our built for online. This is two screen photos of, or screenshots of our Moodle sites. Probably, we've got a start here which brings them in the classroom where where the Zoom setup is and the recordings are recorded. This case is what's called work placement. So this is early childcare, looking after 3 to 5 year olds at primary, kindergarten, things like that. And this is, they have to go into the work placement. They actually have to go, and they set up their own work placement because they said they have different competing priorities. We give them the opportunity to go find their own work placement, set up that own time. So we provide information on that. And then we break down, it comes into different topics, 10 weeks of topics, and said fully embracing that. And here's just an example of one of the activities. Again, this is, I think, in the first section, after reading a little bit, there's an activity where you have to match the right things together. And that is, again, just about students being able to reinforce their learning without having to necessarily interact with the teacher. So they can do the quiz in their own time and check that they've learned it correctly. So we have lots of this type of work throughout our learning. As I said, the example we had Sally before, she said she was 29 years of age with kids at home. That is, said, our learners tend to be, the youngest is 25, the most of them are between 25 and 35 years of age, and there are some older, right? So they have a slightly different, try and understand slightly different. So we need to give them plenty of stories. So we design, these are stories in the mental health course where we've got these characters and we give them a story they understand, and the students can follow and apply their learning as they go along. So it provides real examples for them to work with. These examples are broken up into smaller interactions to make it easier to digest. So one of our principles is that a student should be able to learn something in 20 minutes. And if they want to take a break, they can close the computer, walk away, come back. So it's all broken up to 20 to 30-minute blocks of learning. So they've got support from their teachers, from the student engagement or the course advisors, and we get feedback from them and they get feedback from us. Said device agnostic, it's all on Moodle, but it can be accessed on computers or tablets or mobile phones, so you can learn from anywhere, and that's really important for us. We have, as I said, our remote students, and again, so the online environment, you have to deal with it, and as that picture showed before with the children on top of it, many of our teachers will tell you they deliver webinars where there are kids running around in the background, or there's other distractions and noises at home. So we have to build that allows them to learn at their own time, that allows them to a variety of learning activities, allows them to self-assess at times with online quizzes, right? And it doesn't matter what time or what environment they're in. So once we've built a very strong online presence that has all that information in there so the student can learn on their own behalf, we then still provide heavy support in regards to teachers. So our teachers go on Zoom with them, our teachers interact on the forums with them and are available all the time in that regards. So not just, fixed 1 hour or 2 hour block a week. And they help provide an online facilitation for our students. And they send in feedback too on the students. They send a lot of, if they go into a forum and start adding to the forum discussion, they're obviously providing feedback to that student, but they're also providing feedback to the entire class, which is very important. Said interactive resources are very important. Where we've seen in the past where just putting up, say, text in a downloadable document doesn't work very well because students lose a bit of interest in it. So what we've got here is we have some different activities available with different steps in it. So this one up here where we've got Harry's goal setting. Harry's someone, I think it's in our mental health course. Remember, we talk about his issues and then we go through the slider and we start to develop those points more and more, and pictures of Harry change, the outcomes change, the people interacted by the images start to change over the time. So you build a bit more interactivity rather than just plain text, which you may...
Con đừng có làm bài nói con rồi.
Hello. So that's really important to maintain. The forum said provide an interactive activity. So we've invested more recently in a lot more of those 360 walkthroughs where you walk through a building that you're not necessarily going to get access to. But on the other side, and probably one of the learnings we've had, these things are fantastic. Like, they're really interactive. They're really good for a student experience. But from a design and development, they're also very difficult to maintain or require a lot of work to maintain. So that's where I have a dedicated team to build and maintain these courses, which we don't have. The other teams within Chisholm Institute don't necessarily have, because to update some of these documents or these activities takes a lot more than fixing a Word or a word processing document that you may normally use. So that's always something to keep in mind, is you'll have to continually maintain, update. We like to put links out to videos that already exist on the internet, that especially if they come from, say, an industry expert, so someone that really knows what's happening in the industry. We like providing a link so the students can go and see that, or to documents from relevant authorities or within their industry. The problem is also, again, the document moves, the video disappears. So there is an ongoing maintenance requirement for us to keep checking those things are still working and update them as they come along. So that is one of the difficulties within maintaining the online learning environment. Here we've got a picture. This is one of the 360 walkthroughs where you walk through on your screen, and this is in an aged care setting. So this elderly man who's living in an assisted living home has set fire to his hairdryer, and this will then start prompting for a range of responses from the students. So it gives them an opportunity to see what they can't see at home, and then try and, depending on the question that gets thrown up, they have to answer a particular question to try and get them to respond, or at least think in the same way as if they were actually there. And we build this into some of our assessments or and our learnings to help out. And this one was built with one of those 360 cameras, where it actually went through the nursing home and built that with the owners to try and help build the quality of the learning. This is a video where we're bringing someone from the aged care industry, which is the videos there. And this is how someone who works in it, that we bring them in, we've interviewed her, and we've made that video available to our students. So our students can see someone and hear what they say from a real work experience. At the same time, we use these people to help us guide us on the best way to, or the latest information within the industry, so that we always know the most up-to-date information, video recorded for our students, and to update our learning content. So that learning content, so if you think back maybe to a book, which might be published every couple of years, we are not doing updates every year, we're doing them every year on an ongoing basis. We're updating our content. And those videos with industry experts or audios is very useful. I said feedback's important to us. This is what we've got on the screen is a survey we only sent out a couple of days ago. So I was preparing, this were the first results that came in when I was preparing my presentation. We're asking them what time they prefer their webinars, their classes, their online. So it goes for an hour. And rather than us telling them, this is what time it will be, we've gone back to them and said, what time do you want it to be? And we will then work towards trying to accommodate them, work out how to make it work for them. 7 p.m. to 10 p.m, so nighttime after work, or in cases of some of our students, after the children go to bed, is obviously winning the race right now. It's the most popular feedback we've got. So we're looking, so again, this is about trying to deliver an environment that works with our students. So if we get the feedback and understand what they want, we can help try and deliver that for them. How do we do that? We've got 2 standard surveys each term, plus some other ones, like this was another one. This is an additional one where we were trying to prepare for next year. We look at their online activity. We look at how many attempts it takes them to do a quiz, and the results they get out of those quizzes to work out whether we need to refine the quiz or we need to refine the learning. So we keep that ongoing improvement going through by trying to understand how they are progressing. And because you're online and it's all in the learning management system online, it's very easy to track. Right? It's all there in the data log. So unlike, you don't get the teacher doesn't get the benefit of seeing the students' faces all the time like you do in class, but we can track their activities online and learn from that about how our students are going. And that's very important. Some success. We've got a very student-focused ideas and concepts. Here's some of our teachers. We work hard on our stakeholder involvement and or our industry experts. We like to test and experiment. That's something I've been working on this morning. We've been playing around some new technologies this morning. We're playing around with artificial intelligent videos. So it's creating a video, a head talking based on text, which will help us speed up video production. So it's all done, type in some, a script, drop it into the computer system. 5 minutes later comes out a video with a background, the face talking, and that's going to help us get more and more videos. So playing with technology is really important, and the more you can do it, the better. There are, if you think through lots of what's available on the internet, there's lots of things. We are looking at, could we use Facebook? Could we use Slack? Could we use a range of other information that's out there that's already available and is free, and trying to work out as much of that as we possibly can. And just if you reimagine how the student is currently using that technology and then how we can interact with that technology, then you start to build that student experience even more. So that's what we're working through now. That sort of coming to the end. I guess the key bit of that is, I said, with our design, you have to think of the student, you have to think of it digital first. We regularly explaining to the teachers who deliver on our campus sites to classroom-based students about, we're not moving textbooks or written documents to the internet. We have to completely transform it into online, interactive, small segments that they can pursue at their own time. And that's probably the key bits we've got from our thing. That is my formal presentation. I haven't been reading the chat box yet, but I can have a look. I've got a hand up.
My question was about how long does it take when you start the process of planning and on designing online courses? How long does it take? And my second question was around who is involved, and particularly for the support teams like Chisholm Online, what are the profiles of the people who can help with designing the different formats that Simon talked about in the presentation. So over to you, Simon.
We use, obviously, to develop the course, we have to use the teachers or industry experts, because it's important that we get the same outcome of learning. The student understands the same thing by the time they finish as if they were attending class. So we have to use one, but we also have to use, have our own online design team. I have a team of 8 people that specifically specifically there to help design and write for the courses. So they take the information from the experts and work out how to do it. So that actually requires a lot of planning. The planning time is, it's difficult because it depends on obviously the complexity of the course, but we can spend, a week, or say if a new course, we can spend 2-3 weeks just planning workshops, trying to work it out. It's very difficult because we're still, I've only been in the office a couple of times this year because of the COVID situation, but you sit there and we go through, what we used to go through and spend a few days working through how it could work, and then you go away and you spend a couple of days working and then come back and try and what we call storyboard, get the entire process, the learning built up onto a wall, and try and map it out and be very conscious of the amount of time it will take them as a student to take that information, learn it, and apply it through the quizzes and whatever else, and also appreciate the amount of time they have available. So a course that takes 1 year, if you turn up to campus, to the classroom, may take our students, because they're working, family, or whatever else, it may take them 2 years, which means the outcome is they don't have 20 hours a week. They've only got 5 hours or 10 hours a week to dedicate to the learning. So we need to consider those things. And that all gets not only the content, but the time we expect them to take to learn it is all planned out. And so that planning can take a couple of weeks to get it through, so that we're all happy that a student, based on what we know about the student or what we think we know about the students, especially a new course, you don't know, but you use the experience of other courses to try and understand how long we think it'd take and how much time that student will have to dedicate to it. So there is a lot more time probably put into that planning to make sure that is. The important bit is we said we have people that have a range of different learning skills. So the team I have come from, some have just done, digital work, some have just come from a publishing company, so that worked on textbooks in the past. We have people that are very good with video and images, and I've got someone working on games on a platform called Unity, which is available. There's a free package of that, but it's a game engine that's available on the internet, which is used by game developers. And we've got someone who can build that and is currently working on our first games to play to reinforce the learning. So you have to have a range of different skill sets. And I think as I don't necessarily know the Vietnamese environment that well, but I think if you sit there and try and understand what your students are, who they are, what they're trying to learn, and that would be dependent on the course, what sort of environment they're going to be in, what sort of background they're going to have, and how you can deliver it in a way that allows them to learn at home. And then you think about the variety of what they can do, would like to hit. And then you also think about, because it's online, what else they're doing online. I said, one of the things we're looking at right now is, could we use Facebook, for example, more to build into that learning experience? How can we bring that in? And if you start thinking about that from what the students' skills, abilities, and knowledge is of what they are, and you try and find that point where we bring what they already know in technology and where they're comfortable to what we need to deliver them, and try and find that place. I said can be weeks of planning just before we even start writing anything.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Simon. And we might leave some more questions after the second presentation, because some of the answers can also be answered by our second speaker, who is Stuart Remington. So Stuart, if you could maybe turn your video on, and I will quickly introduce. Hello and welcome, and good to have you in your work attire, and we really appreciate you being flexible and managing the different competing priorities. So Stuart is a cookery lecturer at TAFE South Australia, or TAFE SA. He has been cooking professionally for 21 years and teaching for 7 years. So Stuart's interest is in digital capability and technology to support progression of students. Although Stuart didn't mention this in his short bio that he provided to me earlier, I happen to know that Stuart, you have been recently named as South Australia TVET Teacher of the Year, and
Yes.
that you will be representing South Australia in the National Training Awards in November. So congratulations, and we're very happy to have such a high achieving expert and trainer with us today. So over to you. Hopefully you will be able to share your screen, and we look forward to having your experiences on planning for online or blended learning from so I wonder if you have the Vietnamese translations actually.
Yeah, I'll get that one up for you.
So from a trainer perspective, otherwise we have that at the backup as a backup as well. So we could have. Great, thanks very much. So we will have Stuart's perspective as a trainer of how planning of online learning looks like from a trainer perspective in a particular sector. So Stuart, over to you.
Thank you. Can you see the screen okay?
I can, but we can see 2 slides at once. I wonder if it would work if you downloaded it, or just like that is good.
Yeah, perfect. So firstly, thank you very much for having me, everyone. and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I hope everyone's doing well, and it's been an interesting experience so far. As Eva mentioned, my name is Stu Rington, and I'm a cookery lecturer at TVET, and I do a lot of our online and digital development and learning processes for our department over here. So what we do in our part of TVET, we have a focus at the moment, which is going towards digital capabilities. So trying to enable our digital footprint and making sure that we can access more activities and more interaction and more student-focused, engaged experiences to give them an authentic experience with learning. So we've got a plan in place for the next 5 years that we're trying to put towards using a lot more online capabilities and trying to give students more access and equality and equity in their teaching and learning. I'm going to have to double check that I mentioned it. So there are a lot of things to consider when we look at developing online learning for our cohorts. So we currently deliver across the country, even though we're a TVET based in the South Australia organisation. We also deliver to some other states as well as internationally. So we have a few partnerships with some international colleges dealing to people in America and Korea and China and India. So we can do that from where we're located in Australia, and we help them achieve their outcomes as much as we can remotely. And then where possible or where practical, we go and visit and do our practical observations. At the moment, we're doing some live streaming versions of cookery components to determine the outcomes that we can for some abilities. Things to consider when we're planning for this is, what's our capability? What do we have that we can offer? What's our platform choices? So within most countries at the moment, you might have a few choices of platform. So we work with an international platform called Moodle, and we've adapted that to suit our learning materials and given it a bit more of a tweak to suit our branding with colours and styling and formats. And that's pretty easily accessible for us within Australia. So it doesn't have too much issues with internet bandwidth or lag or time delays. And it's also been developed so we can download it as an application for a mobile device or tablet or phone. So we create our content to suit both the phone and the computer.
Stuart, if I can just quickly jump in, our interpreters are saying that they have trouble hearing you. I wonder if there is another way for you to either speak without a headset or readjust the headset.
Give me 1 moment to take the headset out and I'll see if the computer is better.
Let's try that.
Can you hear me well at all?
Yes, we can hear you. Great. Thank you so much. Please continue.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat anything that we went over previously?
Just checking with the interpreter, but also if you also could speak a little bit slower so that the interpreters have the time to keep up with the flow of your presentation. Thanks.
No problem at all. I'll wait just to confirm if you would like me to keep going or start again.
Please go ahead. We'll let you know if there are any other concerns, but so far so good. Thank you.
So things we need to consider are our student demographics. What courses are we going to deliver? For our department, we focus on hospitality, cookery and tourism. So there is a lot of theoretical knowledge and a lot of background that goes into our underpinning knowledge and requirements for performance. We can deliver a lot of that online. It's very hard to assess the practical online though. So we may have video support systems or a resource bank of material that we can use and deliver. Some things can be set up autonomously, where students may do that on their own, and some things may be set up to be done in conjunction with a facilitator or lecturer to guide them through the process. This would also come down to the qualification level for us focused in Australia, where we have different AQF, Australian Qualification Framework levels, that relate to our level of delivery and the attention required for the expected outcome. So things that we also consider at the moment as well, there are 3 different mediums that we are working on So VR is virtual reality, AR is augmented reality, and MR is mixed reality. So we have a few different methods. So virtual reality is on the screen where you may be able to put on some glasses and physically walk around a safe space, or like you'll be walking around a room, or using handheld tools and devices with a glasses or set of screen that you could use to practice with welding. We do something with welding at the moment where we have a handheld welding device with some glasses where they can look, and the handheld device coincides with the glasses to determine where they're touching, whether it's vibrating or sticking or not. Augmented reality might be a bit more 3D, so you might see some more virtual interpretation and different spatial awareness. And then mixed reality, we may have some 3D reality and virtual realities coinciding together with some 2D realities also, which you'll see here. Sorry, that hasn't translated too much. And so when we work with the different virtual realities, we also think about application. So you need to get the right software systems, is it right for your cohort? Does it suit the needs of the learner? I think a lot of considerations with digital learning at the moment, a lot of people are trying to do it because they need to keep up with pandemic restrictions or accessibility, but it also relates to, is it appropriate for our delivery? Does it matter if we can do it online, or can we do it face-to-face and get a better outcome? For example, in cookery, while we have a lot of videos and we use a lot of digital resources, we get such a stronger outcome from the face-to-face training and teaching of sight and smell and touch and sound, but it gives the students a resource to practice at home. So they could look at it as many times as they like, they can try it out as many times as they like, but then when they come into the class, they get the direct feedback from their lecturer. This is a little, we're going to a pathway now where we're looking at virtual spaces. So in the last couple of months, I've developed some virtual spaces for some different program areas in TAFE. And I'll just share my screen to see if you can still see that. Can you see that okay, Eva?
Yes, we can.
Great. This is something we've done for a gym. So this comes to health and fitness. So we've used a camera, which we purchased under the Matterport branding. And it allows us to take a snapshot of the space, and you can move the camera around into positions all around a room, and it can create a 3D room, so you could walk through it potentially with the right software, or you can manually click around it and adjust as need be. When we do spaces like this, it's really important to consider the planning. So for example, where this camera is positioned at the moment on the ground, that's where the camera was to take the 3D image. So where you see a circle over here, the planning behind it was very specific to make sure we were right in front of some equipment, some charts, so students, if they wanted to, they could zoom in on something, or they could zoom out on something, with some tags so they can see what the product might be. And it would take them all around the room. So if they were to see how to set up a gymnasium, or they wanted to look at some certain equipment, they'd be able to see what could be required and applied, and they can research if need be. This is one space, which is quite a simple one to do. The cameras that we have, they're pretty, a bit of an investment, but you can do this with a common model iPhone that is currently available, or some Android and Samsung phones that are also available. You've got options in here as well where you can look at things from a floor plan. So you can move around a virtual space and then go to that specific spot. So you can click and select and move around. Another space that we have is something for welding and light fabrication. So this is done for welding and production facilities where we use in our training environment. This is a basic setup, so nothing that's really been formalized for delivery as yet, but you can see a similar space and structure. And the concept behind it is very similar, where you adjust, you move, you can position yourself around. The only things that you have to really be aware of is making sure you're planned in advance of where you want everything to be. So do you want the stools on the table? Do you want the bin on the floor? Do you want to make sure that these curtains down the back are closed or open? Because as you move each snapshot, you may see that some curtains might be open and then some curtains might be closed. So you have to plan in advance on how you want everything to be perceived so the students don't get confused. if we go through to the next one, this is probably the best outcome we've had so far. This is our digital kitchen that we worked on and we've been using for delivery. So I set this tool up about 2 months ago, and we've used it for assessment when we had one of our most recent lockdowns. So you can go to so many lengths with this sort of a software. Similar again, where you can click around the place on the screen where you want it to be, and you move around a kitchen. So this is a snapshot of our kitchen that I'm sitting in right now. So you can see all the equipment around. We've identified labels and tags so students can familiarize themselves before coming into the class. And this one, we've put in some videos. So while we've got some videos developed for TAFE, it's SOP material, which is safety operating procedures. And it allows a student to watch and understand how to use it before they come in. So it links up and you can watch it in virtual reality.
We also have numbers
in real
on the top
time.
here on this.
And we've related that to a lot of our different equipment. So when they come in, they will know how to at least observe, utilize, and put it together, and potentially understand the safety requirements that come behind it. We've also put in some tags. So we've put in some red tags that we used in this resource for an assessment purpose. So we might ask them to go to a unit which is online and complete some questions relating to where is the emergency evacuation lights, or where is the fire extinguishers, and we can see them signed there. And then we might get them to replicate that in a map of their own. Or if we were to go to this other side of the kitchen, we've set up another scenario where we've identified some perished products. So we put some items out that have been tainted, and we've given them a few examples. Oops, sorry. A few examples that they can look at, so they can use that for a resource also. So this is just a way to support the student in continuing their learning process and being able to complete some assessment criteria and materials while getting comfortable with the space that they're going to spend a lot of time in. As our cohorts are varied, we may have some from 6 months to 2 years in the kitchen. So spending a lot of time in here and understanding the positions and the expectations and the tools is also a good foundation for them to get comfortable. So on top of that, I think we're up to looking at how and why. So we do this because we want to open opportunity for students and give them accessibility options. So some students, while they spend a lot of time in the kitchen, they may feel a bit pressured or forget something. So they can go back to a virtual kitchen and rethink and revisit or familiarize themselves before they come into it. It's a great tool that we use also for our marketing for international students. They can see a kitchen that they're going to spend time in. They'll understand the space and potentially meet the lecturers before they come in. If we have time, Eva, would you like me to show through our online learning platform?
Yes, that's great. You have been talking about the learning plan, and so has Simon. So I think it would be really useful to have a sense of how it looks like. Thank you.
This is a online learning platform that we've utilized from a company called Moodle, and we've adapted it to become our version called Learn. This is a sample of a unit that we have developed for an accredited unit of competence called Produce Cake, Pastries and Breads, going towards a certificate 2, 3, 4 and advanced diploma qualification. So this is a proposed example of what we use, but it is very similar to what we use. So in our online learning, we've set a shell up like this to be autonomous. So we give the students some slight instruction, and we get them to go through the unit in their own time to learn and engage and mingle with other students. We've been trying to create an online community for students so they can get interactive with each other, get comfortable with each other, or talk to each other as well. Because when we're learning remotely or if we're in lockdown, it's very important to keep that sense of community up there, where they can get in touch with each other, ask each other for help, and monitor each other's progress. This is something which we've embedded into it called Padlet. So we put in a little Padlet option saying, and you can say welcome or hello or congratulations or what would you like to know? So we can have some interactivity on there and see how people progress or have some questions. Announcement forums which we use to discuss anything that may be coming up, or a recipe adjustment or something like that. A discussion forum we set up so people can post questions. They can talk to each other, they can ask questions about sessions or food items. We highlight all our information on assessments so they can see what's required. And then it gives some instruction on how to progress through with some videos and tutorials on how to utilize the service. On the left-hand side, we see a lot of our navigation and materials. So we have a lot of student support services on offer, even remotely. So we have app information on how to download and utilize and progress on your app if you need to. We've got some student support services where you can contact people at a help desk, or some study options to help improve your research capabilities. Online classes and recordings is where we keep a lot of our online classes. So some units we'd have a structured online class where we might say, okay, on Tuesday at 2 p.m. we're going to go through pastry items and talk about it. So we'd set it up. It would open up to a similar screen, and we'd have a live chat room just like a Zoom. This one's called Collaborate, very similar concept, but it's through Collaborate on Learn. Then we'd have some sessions on Start Here. So this would be the introduction forum. And again, this is where we've used our online kitchen to identify some assessment material and familiarization. And then we have some introductions for the lecturers and resources. So you might be able to have lecturer contact information or student unit assessment outline and some sort of self-assessment processes. Then we might go through a few different theory options, and we'll talk about some content. There might be a PDF or a discussion post or interactivity. There's also some materials they can resource where, for this one, I created an activity where we wanted students to find something on a map and talk about historical or cultural items. So for some, they wrote about Madagascan chocolate and vanilla, or New Zealand lamingtons, or Japanese mochi balls, or fast cheesecakes from Spain. So just a way to talk and discuss and communicate together. Then we've developed a lot of resources. So we've made quite a substantial investment, but we've worked with YouTube to embed some of our materials. And we've got a lot of videos on how to complete some items from our practical classes. So if a student wanted to review and practice at home, it's got the methods in there, which come back from the recipe book, which is in resources. They can take it, download it, organize the ingredients, and they can make it at home on their own with some clear tutorials. So they can watch this as many times as they like. You can skip forward if you need to. The chef does a very good demonstration and instruction on the commodities and the ingredients, the techniques, the creaming, and the stabilization and setting temperatures. So we've gone through that with quite a variety of different outcomes and different techniques and resources and videos. So this has been quite successful for a lot of us. And the thought process behind it was, what would our learners want to see? What do they need to see to be able to achieve the product successfully? Or what are we wanting them to understand so they can come in and understand what we're talking about when we see them face to face? And then there's a few little assessment materials on there also where we do our online assessments, and we can connect with the students whenever we need to. That is the main part of it at the moment, Eva. Is there anything you'd like me to recover or go over?
Well, let's see if yeah, I have plenty of questions, but let's just reach out to the other participants and see with our colleagues from the Australian Embassy in Vietnam if they can tell us if there are any questions. So there are some questions in the chat box. I think that Simon has started answering some of them, but if you could bring them back into the general forum so that we can all be able to hear Simon's answers or your answers, and also provide both of you with the opportunity to respond. So Liha, can I please reach out to you and get you to tell us what the questions have been so far, and put them forward to Stuart and Simon. Thank you.
Yes, sure, Eva. The first question is to Simon from Mr. Anh Thuấn from the Yên Bái Medical College. The question is, you know that learner center approach is not something new. We have been use this approach even in the face-to-face course design. And now we mention it in the online course design. So what are the differences of the learner-centered approach in the two kind of forms of training, face-to-face and online? when we talk about course design.
Thank you. Look, probably the main difference we have is while there is a class of webinar, it's on Zoom each week, and the students can go to that. The students can also go to extra sessions where they can see their teachers. I said a lot of our students will learn at nighttime, weekends, when teachers aren't necessarily always around. Sometimes they are, but it's up to them. So when we sit there and look at the student-centered design, we have to sit there and think about how the student's learning and what they're perceiving information. So in a classroom where a bit of information is delivered and a student puts their hand up and says, I've got a question, they can't do that. So one of the things that we do is we actually go through with our teachers and look at the sort of questions the students have been putting to them, especially on the online forums. And when we see that students are putting questions to them, we then sit there and re-look at the learning content, whether it be the text, the videos, the quizzes, whatever it is, and then sit there and go, do we need to update those so that the student doesn't put their hand up in the first place? And that's sort of, I guess, probably the easiest way to explain the way we've got to do with it online is if you are not going to have the teacher in front of you all the time, because some of our students will never attend a class. Some will attend them all, some will never attend any. We need to think about how they receive that information, how they process it, and how they can confirm that information without that interaction. And that's obviously, trying to answer the questions in the content before they ask the question.
We seem to have
but also again those activities. Sorry,
you just froze there for a minute, but all good.
Sorry. Yeah, it's trying to, I guess, preempt what the students thinking so that they can learn it the first time properly. And yeah, it's I guess as a teacher, when I was teaching, because you're doing it on Zoom as well, one thing I learned very quickly is I don't have a whiteboard where I can start writing on explaining things. So you had to work out, I had to plan my presentation more too. So it's probably some of those things where you've got that less interaction with the two. You have to then preempt things in advance. Hopefully that helps clarify it.
Great. Stuart, maybe you would like to add from your perspective how online course planning is different to face-to-face from a student engagement perspective. Thanks.
So I think from our online planning, we're still evolving. We are only really starting to get through our infancy stage of course production and design, and we're responding to students each semester. So we found in the middle of the pandemic that we had to do everything online. We managed it 100%. We were constant engagement with students, sending them emails and phone calls to make sure they're online and communicating and aware of how to engage. We tried to create interactivity as much as possible and some asynchronous activities where we could. So we'd pose some questions to them to do a bit of research, or we'd think about what we wanted them to do, what we wanted them to achieve, and how would they do that when they're not face-to-face with us. So designing the resources, allowing them to communicate and connect within the platform, set up a structure for them to communicate together and build their community so they could have a bit more confidence when they knew what they were doing, or they could reach out to their peers. I think similar to social media and social learning and cognitive constructivism, they need to be able to form their own ideas on their own and come together when they need to. So the design element came back to what our timetable was originally. We might have timetabled 3 sessions of face-to-face theory. So we look at that content and go, well, 3 sessions of face-to-face should be enough as 3 sessions online. But we may add 30% more time for communication issues or connectivity issues or extra questions. So we could do that if need be, as well as being accessible. So we would always make sure that any lecturer involved in the online unit, all their information was up there for a student to contact and call. So if they needed to email or ask a question or phone call, they could do so. So really just thinking of the student perspective. Even simple thing of what font do we use, or how big should the wording be? Should it be centrally aligned? Should it be options to have alternate text available, which is something we're working on now to have embedded resources to download and translate to any language as possible, or using PowerPoint Live for presentation. So if a lecturer was presenting, we could use PowerPoint Live, which would translate into Vietnamese or Korean or Hindi or anything like that, so the student could feel more comfortable with their own situation and record it. So we have a recording available they could go back and review if need be. So we tried to think of anything possible that would support them in their process. I mean, for most lecturers and teachers, the outcome is the fundamental necessity of finding out how we can achieve their learning, and how do we do that without them not discounting the value that we can offer, and why should they listen to us digitally as opposed to something else they can see on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Liha, just over to you about more questions coming from the audience. Thanks.
Sure. Another question to Simon from Mr. Khai from Nha Trang Technical College. The question is, I understand from your presentation that for the CHISM Online doesn't have the delivery design for the online live delivery. It means that it's mainly mainly about recorded sessions, and you only use the Zoom for interaction between teacher and student, but not for delivering of new content. So my question is, what is the ratio of the live class or live time out of the whole course? So I'm not sure if I make it clear, Simon. So the question is kind of for CHISM Online. He see that from your presentation that is most of the courses are recorded, not a kind of live delivery.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is it right? And if it's right, then is there any live classes, and what is the ratio of the live class out of the whole course?
Yep. Okay. So I said it's a 10-week each subject, each section. So is it 10 weeks? So and you have blocks of 10 weeks. In that 10 weeks where you learn however much we provide content, each week you have a live class. So on Zoom like this, which students can attend. Because of the types of students, I said students that have got other things going on, kids, job, whatever, we get about 30% turn up. So it's and they're 1 hour a week live classes. The teachers will also schedule, I said the others will watch it afterwards, the recording. We also schedule some what we call drop-in sessions when the teacher will just turn Zoom on, and then 1 or 2 of those a week. And if a student shows up, they can start talking to their teacher and ask them any questions. So that's available as well to help fill in the gaps. And then beyond that, I said that's all that, because of the way we've designed it and who our students are, that's all optional. They don't have to turn up. It's up to them if they do. Some of our teachers are more than happy to, because they're employed what we call casual, so they sort of set their own hours. Some of them will run those sessions, those drop-in sessions on the weekends as well, if it works with them as well. So there is availability of teaching. They do get a live class. They do get the opportunity to ask questions. But I said it's all available online. And the other option obviously there is on the forums where they ask questions, other students will answer them, teachers will answer them, and they collectively sort of share that knowledge during that 10-week period. Does that kind of help?
Simon, I'm not sure if you cover the question about the ratio of the rate, like of the live class or the live time between teacher and student out of the whole, like a 10 weeks course.
So we depends a little bit on the course, because some different expectations of students, and we also give them the option of doing more subjects at once if they choose. But we're really still looking around we design it for about 7 or 8 hours worth of learning a week. That's sort of our benchmark. As I said, there's an hour of class in that. The rest would be them learning. Depends. That's sort of where we see it. But I said they can do that. Some of us, yeah, depends on how. Like there's the base learning that is available. There is obviously more information. If we send them to go look at another website or another YouTube video, they can spend more time as well. They can do their own research. But there is, yeah, obviously 7 hours is probably the expected learning. An hour of fixed class if they choose. A couple of hours to turn up to speak to their teacher again if they choose to.
I was wondering what the South Australian experience is from that perspective. Stuart, would you want to maybe share how you see the ratio of online versus synchronous versus asynchronous? So with a teacher at the same time, as opposed to individual learning in the student's or learner's own time?
Yeah, when we do online learning, we do still have a timetable structure. So we still focus on completing units, whether it be within 5 days or 10 days. So the students are expected to complete certain benchmarks in a similar time frame. Whether they achieve it or not, it then prohibits them or enables them to complete a theoretical or practical assessment task. So far, what we've seen are face-to-face validity and attrition rates have been probably more 60% positive outcomes in first attempt, but digitally it's been 90%. So we do see that some students are flexible or looking at alternative options to complete assessment tasks, but the benefit is we have put in some blockers and some script enablers to stop copy and pasting or external resources accessing. So we do know it is the student completing the assessment task. Sometimes they just might have some supplementary materials if it was a printed copy or a handout copy for themselves to reflect to, or maybe even their own revision notes. We are seeing a strong ratio of completion still, whether it be online or face-to-face or vice versa. Sometimes we still have online classes. The main connector we see is when a lecturer is engaged, whether we say face-to-face via Zoom or communicated through email, we see a stronger retention rate. And so we still position lecturers to be engaged with each cohort. We don't open it up to be 100% autonomous. We make sure we're engaged in instructional, considering a constructive alignment. So we start with a foundation, an application, a delivery, a conversation, and then we work on formative and summative assessments. So we've designed formative assessments for the students to complete on their own, which is self-marking, and they can complete that as many times as they want to build their knowledge and to do what they feel they need to achieve to remind themselves of what they might be having questions come later. So they could write notes on their outcomes, they could reflect on a question, and potentially we could have a question that might not have been made correctly. And they might have said, Chef, this question 7 times, it's not letting me answer it correctly, and we have to fix that, which is something we need to do. We're at the stage now where we've troubleshooted a lot of issues and we're at a successful online learning platform. The biggest success we see is when a lecturer is engaged and it's supportive and nurturing. So online classes that we have is generally a ratio of 16 to 32 maximum per lecturer. If we ever have 32, generally we have 2 lecturers involved and one will deliver and one will moderate at the same time.
And do you have a sense of the ratio? So for example, Simon was just saying Chisholm for 7 to 8 hours per week of engagement with a student will have that hour, right? Simon, you said of face-to-face. Do you have something similar to guide you through the planning at TVET?
We don't have a set structural ratio at the moment, but let's say if we worked off our face-to-face timetable, most of our theory sessions are set up to be 2 hours maximum. So if there's a lecturer engagement, there'll be a lecturer discussion for potentially half an hour and an hour and a half for the student to do some research or collaboration or reading or peer support and then complete a formative assessment task. As a general guide, you know, sometimes maybe less, sometimes maybe more, depending on the content that we talk about. There's one unit specifically called Plan and Cost Menus, which is very theoretical based and very heavy in the autonomous work, where we do maybe a 2-hour delivery, but then the students may have up to 20 hours over 5 days to do some autonomous work themselves. That would be the worst ratio we have.
Yeah. Okay, great. back to Liha and questions from the audience. So thanks very much. That's very helpful. And the more practical, I think, hints and experience sharing from you, the better it is. So we appreciate, you know, the examples you're giving from your institutes. So any more questions from the participants, Liha?
Yes, another questions to Simon. Simon, we understand from your presentation that most of the learners of the CHISM online are adult, the one who working while studying. And as you know that in Vietnam, for us, most of our learners are young people who can do learning online full time. So is there any special desire for these young people who doing online full time from TVET perspective? And if there is there any differences between the two approach?
Yeah, so yes, there is significant differences. And as I said at the start, CHISM has its campus facility, which has those same younger people turning up. And that's when the CHISM Online was set up. It was like, let's set up a different opportunity for people that cannot turn up because, as I said, family, work, whatever else. So hence why we get that 25 to 35-year-old demographic. That they're our people, whereas the people on our campus are 16, 22 age bracket. So you've got a couple of things in there. As probably, I'm sure you've learned as teachers that as you bring experience to a learning environment, as the student brings their experience, they try and reflect with their own experiences, which a younger student does not necessarily have as much of, where an older student has more personal experience, they may understand more. So you've got to rethink about who they are a little bit more and design those activities for them. And that's where one of the slides, I had some case studies or some people where they had a story, and we take them through this person's story, say in the nursing situation, or this is the patient, this is what they've had to do, and we try and develop that story a little bit and something they can relate to a bit more, because hopefully they've had a bit more experience in their life, whether it's dealing with elderly parents or friends that they know. So you kind of got to think about it in that way, because if you teach them like you might teach a 16, 17-year-old where they tend not to have less of those experiences, the adult learner gets a little disinterested. They don't find as stimulating, therefore don't get as much out of their learning. So you kind of have to think about that. And then beyond that, I said probably some of the other comments about just knowing the fact that they're at home and they have other distractions, and making sure that the learning it's not too hard for them to learn while they've got other, or short periods of availability or other distractions. Does that kind of help?
Yes, and I'm tempted to also ask the same question to Stuart, to have two different takes on that question.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
About, I think the question was about engaging younger learners, so more the older teens who have that capacity to study full time, as opposed to what Simon was talking about, the people already employed or people with family responsibilities. So is there a different way to plan for online learning for this younger group cohort?
Yeah, most definitely. So for the younger learners, and what we see historically at the moment, is we look at incorporating a facet of gamification. So incorporating challenges or releasing badges. So if they complete a learning activity, we might call them, a pastry master or a commodities master, and they can look at it as a sense of achievement. So they can collect badges and they can see their progress. So we've applied the similarities through all cohorts, but we might highlight it more for the younger ones. Or for the younger ones, we might still look at older experience or historical, cultural and traditional methods or techniques or commodities and bring it forward into the current. So how would a croissant from the 1800s be relevant today, and use that to see what their interpretations are and discuss that. in our online learning, just the badges, the gamification, the interactivity is really important. So creating that community. What we do with our current cohorts is we set up a Facebook group or a social media platform group for them to communicate with each other independently. And while we have ourselves added as lecturers, we're not moderators. We treat it as adult learning, and we expect them to behave under the student code of conduct as normal. But that's just the way we try to assimilate with the students to make them feel comfortable with their engagement if they don't like using the online platform. But the online platform has been quite successful, and adapting badges and resources and talking about gamification or embedding facets of who might have achieved the best, or who got the best outcome, or who did you, like if it was a practical, we could say, who do you think scored the best in their sponge cake, and who did the best presentation. So it's not always about the best, but it could be about the most consistent or the most considered, or depending on the unit we're delivering. We try to work a way into create polls within online classes, or answer questions in groups, or ask them to do some research and come back with an idea. It's a matter of reading your market as you would face-to-face, I would imagine. So treating it as a similar concept. If I had a group of 16 to 20-year-olds, I would have to talk to them differently to how I would from 30 to 50-year-olds. I'd have to use different language, and simpler language or clearer language for some, like you would face-to-face and online.
Great. So that's nice way to complement Simon's response. So that idea of fun and creating some competition, right, to keep younger cohorts engaged. So yeah, great. Thanks very much for the answers. So over to Liha and the questions in the chat box.
The next question is to both Simon and TVET. How to design virtual reality classroom for cookery course? And can you please share the experience how Australian students in your institution practicing in this VR classroom? Thank you.
Yeah. So I did a PD day through TAFE SA with TAFE Queensland. They came down to one of our campuses and we went through this software systems together and had a look through. It took me 2 hours to set up and stage and plan and create the virtual reality room. Once that was taken, it was about 30 to 60 seconds for every image. So every position of the camera, 30 to 60 seconds to take the screenshot around the room, and then it uploads into a software once you're finished. Then it maybe took me an hour to add all the tags and all the videos that we already have as a resource into the rooms, into the videos, to make it more succinct and embedded. So maybe maximum half a day from start to finish with a bit of thought in between.
If I can add to the question though, I assume that it took you this much because you had the cameras in place and the software in place, etc. You could comment just on the infrastructure that needs to be there to start using, by trainers to use virtual reality.
Matterport, we use them at the moment. We have an educator subscription, so I can't remember the amount we pay per year. I don't think it's that much, but we have an unlimited amount. I think we can create 100 virtual rooms or something like that, and we can adapt it to different departments, and we can edit and adjust and manipulate through that subscription software. It's live and available to unlimited amount of people that have access to the URL, and we can release restrictions or add restrictions if need be. The Matterport cameras, they range from anywhere between a standard iPhone. There's software on that works as long as it's got this software inside called LiDAR, which is LIDAR. That's in iPhones at the moment, and I believe it's just been amended to fix into some Samsung and Android phones also. So you may be able to look into what phone you have to see if it can potentially be used on the software. It took me maybe a 4-hour PD day, which is very extensive and probably longer than needed. I'm comfortable with online technology and digital technology. If you're not, then I'd imagine maybe half a day to a day of a PD session or watching some tutorials, depending on how many position shots you take. So as a standard rule, I think it was 40 different screenshots in a kitchen took 24 hours for the software to process and combine every screenshot into the one room. So once you've taken all the photos and uploaded it, the Matterport software embeds everything together, and then you can utilize it as a virtual space. It was originally set up to do real estate. So people are using it to showcase houses and homes, and then we've adapted it for other resources. So we've used it for, I think, you know, you may have heard about the Australian submarine program coming ahead, which is in Adelaide, and we're using that to showcase our submarines and the technologies that are going to be embedded into it. I can't show today, obviously, but it's a way we've utilized to promote what we can do and how to service it. So from infrastructure, I think you can have a free account yourself for a couple of spaces if you want to try it out. If you've got a phone, it gives you clear instruction on the phone when you download the application or use it in the URL. And then it's just a matter of having a play and have a go.
Great. So may I maybe request that you maybe type the name of the software in the chat for people also to be able to look at it. And obviously this is one of many. We're not promoting any particular brand, but just to give you an idea. And there was, I think, a second part to the question about how to use that virtual space for delivery and, you know, particularly these practicals. So you seem to say that you use that virtual kitchen as an introduction for students to familiarize themselves with the facilities. Do you use it for the teaching part of the course as well? And if so, in what format?
Yeah. So with our introduction, when we had our last lockdown, we used it for our introduction to learning and introduction to TAFE. So we did a similar collaborate session like this, and we showed them through the kitchen step by step. And then we gave them the access through the online learning platform. So when they felt comfortable, they could go and have a look and have a walk through virtually. So they could see where pots and pans were kept, the fridge was, where the plastic equipment might be, or where the lecturer's bench might be. So they could do that in their own time. And then as an instructional tool, we use it for some assessment materials where we might go into it on an online learning platform, or we might instruct them to say, go have a look at the virtual kitchen and see if you can find the safe operating procedure file and go and create your own. So we give them some instruction to do so in an assessment, or we might say, let's go to the kitchen and look at the video on how to make breads today and how to roll and shape them. So you can recreate the space as many times as you want and adapt it with different videos to embed if you'd like to, or you can guide them to a YouTube. We use a YouTube website for ourselves for privacy reasons. So we instruct them to look at that, maybe, for example, say, right, today you need to watch videos 10 to 14 and come back tomorrow with a historical, technical ability on how to temper chocolate. So we plan for that to be in our delivery where we might give clear instruction. So that's the main way we succeed with it.
Great. Simon, does Chisholm use virtual reality for online delivery, and in what format?
Yes, we've got a couple. So we started building a few of those just before COVID hits. So, and we've sort of been stopped since then. We want to do more of those. But probably very much like the one Stuart showed where you click on things. And I had that picture of that elderly man earlier on with the fire. Very similar concepts we've got. And probably like Stuart, I mean, I haven't personally done it, me and my team done it, but the time to do it's not difficult. The camera that we purchased is 350 Australian dollars, so it's not overly expensive, but you can also use phones and other things. And I don't believe it's that hard to do. And they are really impressive in that if you can't get the student there, then you give them as, you know, a better experience. We, you know, one of the things we looked at was using the goggles, but the problem for us as our students, because they will never go to campus, they don't have access to goggles because goggles are expensive, you know, a lot, so they don't have them. So obviously, and those, they need to be, you know, unless you're going to get them in front of that, you need to actually, you know, make sure it works on a PC or on a computer that a student's going to be at. So that's probably the main bit to think about. They are very helpful.
Great. I'll pass the floor to Liha because I see lots of questions in Vietnamese. So Liha is better at reading these questions than me. So over to you.
Yes, sure. A question to Stewart. For online class with 3D simulation, then what are the ratio in terms of time between the theory, the simulation, and practicing?
That's dependent on the unit really. So we don't use the virtual kitchen often for every unit. It might be for the introduction stage or the beginning stage of learning, as once they've come to campus, they're familiar with the environment. So they might reference it every now and then. We use YouTube videos more often than anything else. The ratio of utilization, it's a great icebreaker. It's a great marketing tool. It's a great introduction for those who might want to come to TVET, so we can showcase our space. As a training provider, I think we have 400 square meters for 16 students in our kitchens. So it equates to, I think it's roughly 25 square meters per student. So when it comes to social distancing, we can still functionally operate with 16 students in a classroom safely, and they all have their own equipment and facilities. So we try to showcase that we're available and we have the spaces that students can use and learn and have the space to do so, where in a commercial kitchen, you're very restricted sometimes. You may have a very tight area that you have to learn a lot of things in a short space of time. So it does have the ability for us to showcase our options and accessibility. As far as ratio goes for delivery and utilization, it was only a real small initial investment for me to put towards and utilize, but we've opened that up to potentially 200 students this semester. So if it was a full day's work wages for me with the online software that we use and some further development capabilities and the opportunity to redevelop it for different units and different assessments, it can go infinitely. You can redesign, redevelop, re-tag the same room. You can copy the same room and then remake the tags or the equipment videos to be something different. And that's just a matter of time, which is very minimal at this stage from our end. So I don't have a definitive number on ratio. Like, let's say if we were to watch the online videos with them, it would still come down to less than our 2-hour theory structured times. And then it's there whenever they need it.
Simon, would you have something to add to Stuart's response on this?
Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
Happy to move on to the next
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Great.
Yes, another question to the two speakers. It's in English, so I just need to read it out. Can you share with us how to create a virtual classroom using Matterport.com platform? Thanks. So I'm not sure if you are aware that Matterport.com is something I pronounce it right.
No, that's correct. You've read that correctly. Thank you. It's a bit hard to share via this right now because it could take me possibly half an hour to start and finish to set it up properly. I don't know how we would be able to go in the future, but I potentially could organise a video tutorial to be saved and sent out if need be. To do it right now, I think would probably take up a quite chunk of time, but and then also the turnaround time once we've taken the images can take up to 12 hours to be downloadable and accessible. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to achieve that today, I'm sorry.
But I do note that you have explained the different steps already, and so I imagine you commented on how to set yourself up when taking pictures, think ahead, etc. If you could just maybe comment on the process itself without demonstrating. And I know it's not exactly the answer, but that's probably as good as we'll manage to, as well as we manage to respond in this context.
So to successfully do it, I did a trial run first. I did a quick 20-shot pan around the room, and then I took it to my colleagues and said, right, let's sit down and have a look together. What's wrong? What's not good? What needs to be better? It turned out the imagery was amazing, and we could see all the water stains in the grout. So we had the kitchen professionally cleaned so we could get rid of any possible stains and mess to avoid for embarrassment and for appropriate cleaning hygiene practices as well. kitchens get dirty and the floors get quite filthy with the chemicals and the heavy mineral water that we use in Adelaide. So it was a thought process initially, tested it out, took down some notes, reflected on the colleagues' ideas, and then we reevaluated it and did it again, which was, probably the 2 hours for the second attempt. So my first attempt was about an hour to do a quick practice, and then the second attempt was about 2 hours to get it ready to go with all the feedback and the instructions. So we thought about having the knives laid out clearly so we could have them spaced away. We thought about what bench we wanted to have the equipment on so we could tag a video to that bench, and did we have the doors open for equipment or the fridge so we could see the food commodities in there. It was just a little thought on what we want the students to see and what we want them to be able to do with it.
Simon, what was your experience? Did you organize the virtual reality, or was it done by trainers? That's also another thing, thought I have, like who would be doing that, and obviously the process as well, coming back to the question.
Yeah, so we all of ours were the ones we've done not at an actual workplace themselves. So we use the trainers who knew them. So some of our trainers work there and teach. They do both. So we use a lot of those networks to actually go, and then obviously you get the trainer as well to go along, and they help with. I mean, it's obviously planned out in advance, so you spend a bit of time planning about what you want to get out of it. But obviously that trainer knew that workplace environment, and like Stuart would know his kitchen. So you can think about that a little bit more. And then we send someone who knows how to use the camera and has to then put it together at the end out with them to go through that process.
Great, thanks very much. Going back to the questions, yes?
Yes, another question also in English already to both speakers. Can you please share with us how long does it take to build a 3D class? And also, can you share more how to make it?
I think that was kind of similar to before. It's about 2 hours to create the space for me. And then about 24 hours overnight turnaround for the software to complete, and then a couple of hours of editing.
Simon, similar from your perspective?
Similar, yeah. I haven't done it personally, but yes, that sounds about right from what my team's done. Probably the thing is probably what Stuart said is it's actually not that. It looks very difficult. It's actually probably not as difficult as it looks once you sort of you do a little training to understand it. And once you understand things like this, like anything what I've learned is once you work out and master a tool that's not that hard, they can give good effect. And that's where we're always trialing stuff too, trialing new tools, because some good ones can do a lot of good things for your students once you work out how to use them. And generally a lot of them you'll find actually aren't that hard in the first place.
I would suggest to some, if you have a phone or a device that allows you to use that software, try it even in your own kitchen or your own office, and just follow the instruction that it guides you through and see how it works, and just have a go and reflect on it together. Look at some colleagues and go, let's do one each and see how it goes, and see how far you want to take it.
Yeah, great advice.
And take full advantage for free 7-day, 30-day trials.
Yeah.
Of software.
Yeah. Good thinking. Thanks, Simon.
Yes, and then this question is for both speakers. Can you please share some tools that you use to assist and support trainers in design and deliver online courses?
I'll start with if that's okay.
Yeah, and just before you start, I do also flag that we have a whole session about supporting trainers for online delivery in 2 weeks' time. So we will be covering that more extensively, but happy for Stuart and Simon to quickly comment, particularly Simon, I guess, given his perspective. But Stuart, I'm happy for you to also address the question. Thanks.
I guess at the beginning of the pandemic, we had 10 days to turn around and get our course fully online, and I was fortunate that I had some experience prior. So training and support strategies was ourselves. We helped each other. So we all got into a room together. We all sat down with a couple units each and we followed a similar format. I created the first format and showed others how to do so on a projector so they could follow my lead. Then we developed some videos and step-by-step resources. And then TVET came in and developed some more advanced instructional videos, and there's so many things that they've developed for lecturers to watch and learn. But I think most people within our vocation, we learn by observing and doing together. So we managed some time to sit down together with 30 other colleagues and we all got a unit, got it together, and then I reviewed it and then we all delivered and applied it. So peer collaboration and support was the critical thing, as well as having the software or the learning management system ready to go, and having someone evaluate or look into what the capabilities were and how to adapt your assessment resources to suit that learning system.
Tools, yeah. So I've actually put a couple in the chat. So both Stu and I, we both use Moodle as our learning management system, which is what's called open source. So if you can host it on a server, then you can get it for free. Or otherwise, as I'm sure doesn't win it, we actually pay hosting companies to help support us. But that does mean it's relatively cheap. We produce a lot of our content that goes into our Moodle site on a program called Storyline or Rise, which is an articulate product, which I'll put the link in the chat for as well. And then beyond that, so we use a couple of different tools, Padlet, which Stuart showed, which gives a bit of interactivity, Flipgrid, we've got some of these, another thing called H5P, which embeds into many learning management systems. And there's some free, you can play with that for free. I've dropped that in there as well. And that's got a range of tools from quizzes to it has a 360 virtual tour plugin, has a range of things you can play with. So h5p.org, I'd have a look at that. And then it said some Moodle sites, some software it's built into, others you can get it's not expensive software with a lot of options available to play around with. But one of the things is you probably just need to keep looking and trying things. There's always, you don't necessarily have to look at something, is this a learning technology? You have to sit there and go, is this something a student can use? And if they can use it, then can you use it is probably one of the questions come back. And something as simple as YouTube, which we use a lot of, and I'm sure Stuart does too. It's not just learning technology, but having videos there is a great use of a tool that's available.
Yeah, another one I've played with recently is PowerTune, which is sort of a PowerPoint recording video that you can use as well. There's so many out there. I feel like it's evolving so well now that I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up with the options and varieties.
Great, so thanks very much. I think we have the time for one more question. So a difficult choice, because I think there's been a lot of questions in the chat box. But Liha, I will trust your judgment.
No worries, Eva. Actually, I was about to say that before I read in the last questions, we see another like 3 or 4 questions that were quite relevant to the coming session. So we want to read it out this time. And I'm going to read the last questions now. In agriculture sector, especially for the animal health or veterinary course, then that students need to do a lot of practicing. And also some live guidance from the teachers to the student is needed. So if we deliver this kind of courses online, how this activity can be happening, and in your institution, which tools or which software or platform application that you have used to support this teaching or practicing activity? And if there is any application or module, can you please share? Thank you.
I might start. I think I saw some questions about engineering and a few other things too. First of all, said, we are set up for online, so we haven't necessarily grabbed every vocational course. So some like we don't offer Chisholm Online, we don't offer a VET course because that's very difficult to do online. But ways you can potentially look at a couple of different ways where you may be able to deliver some of your part of your course online and some you may have to physically go. But where we do have, and we do have some stuff that requires physical practice, where else, we provide videos on how to do it. And then we ask the students to videos themselves with their phone and send that video back to the teacher. And in some cases, 1 or 2 courses, they do once for us, even though we say class is largely optional, we do have a couple of cases where they do have to sign on with an agreed time with the teacher and show the teacher what they're doing. And obviously that gives an opportunity for feedback. So if they've got access to good internet and a mobile phone, you can achieve a lot of those things that you would normally do in the classroom. Obviously, depending on, you just got to think about, you know, what type of course you're trying to run. Said veterinarian may be difficult, but I don't necessarily know much about it. But obviously, Stuart's obviously got to do some more kitchen-based stuff, so there's probably got a bit more practice or examples in that area.
With kitchen, it's a bit hard for us to assess the students' outcome practically because part of our unit of competence requirements, we have to taste and evaluate food, and we also have to make sure it's hygienically acceptable and fit for customers. So while we do a bit of delivery online, and we give some recipes and resources and materials, it might be for them to practice a reformative assessment style, but it wouldn't be a summative task which we can confirm their competence on. We wouldn't be able to guarantee if their food was prepared by them, even if it's video, or if it came from the right supplier, or if they followed manufacturer's instructions correctly. It could be very flexible or unauthentic of their own work. So we do still require for our unit of competences and qualifications that we have some practical face-to-face elements. It's probably cooking is one of those trade crafts that I don't think will ever be 100% autonomous. As much as people will love to cook and learn how to cook themselves, I think it would be very hard to say everybody's going to be able to cook steak medium by observing through video, or everybody's risotto is going to be well seasoned and balanced just by looking at the texture of the rice. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I think sight, sense, smell, touch, listening to steak sizzle, listening to corn pop in the oven, or listening to a cake crust develop, or the crunch of a baguette. It's those romantic things of cooking that I don't think you can ever get around 100% digitally.
Great, and you make us hungry by talking about all this food related stuff. So I think it is lunchtime in Vietnam, so it's a perfect ending to our session. And indeed, that's I confirmed that we are talking about online, but also blended learning. So we're not assuming that everything will be done remotely and virtually, and referring to that discussion in previous sessions on thinking at institutional level, what can be transferred to online or transitioned to a digital delivery, and what really has to remain face-to-face. So on that note, I will say a big thank you to Simon and Stuart, a big thank you as well to our participants. Apologies for the technical issues that we've had at some point, but I'm glad that we overcome them, and also to Liha and our interpreters again for the wonderful support and participation and input you're providing. So next week our session will be on the delivery itself of online and blended learning. So with more ideas on how to use the different devices. So kind of the next step of that planning stage, and to the doing and delivering the courses stage. And the two areas we will be looking at in particular will be building and construction and nursing. So two areas, again, highly practical. So what can be done in these spaces? So with that, I will say many thanks to everyone again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy lunch for those in Vietnam, and we will see you next week. Many thanks, Simon and Stuart, and thanks for your time and your input and your great thoughts.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good day, everyone.